Hello and welcome to another Dimp Digital review. Today we're looking at Deus Ex Mankind Divided, and this is Hall here. Today in a real role reversal, I'm joined by Mr. Appleyards.
Hello, how you doing?
Yeah, good. How are you? Sorry, I was going to do a bit more of an intro there. How's it going?
Yeah, no, it's fine. A bit nervous to be on the other side of the microphone though. So
Really put your faith in someone else, and it's a risk that may not pay off, but we'll see how we get on. So, as mentioned, we're here today talking about Deus Ex Mankind Divided. It's a game that obviously you've played. Roughly how long have you put into it so far?
am I finished? Yeah, I finished it. I finished the main campaign and the side quest. Had a little dabble with the multiplayer mode, and according to Steam, I clocked up 25 hours.
In typical fashion, why don't we start off with your cards on the table?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the only things that are relevant to this is that I'd played Human Revolution, which this is a
It's
direct
a
sequel of.
predecessor. Yeah.
Yeah, so Mankind Divided picks up kind of 2 years after that. So I'd played that. I'd never played the very original Deus Ex,
Right.
which was like a
Okay.
PC classic. I've only jumped on at the Human Revolution stage, but the timeline is quite different. These are actually set before that, and you're controlling Adam Jensen through Human Revolution, and Mankind Divided is a different character in the very original, so you don't have to have played that one.
So this one's a natural successor to the previous, but not necessarily to the first one.
That's it, yeah. It's a bit odd the way they've done it, but Human Revolution and Mankind Divided are quite closely tied together. The first one, you don't have to have played. Secondly, I actually departed from my usual home with a PlayStation 4 and went for the PC.
Well,
So the rig got a little bit of a run out here, which it hasn't had in too much since I've had it. So it's a little bit of
excellent.
a change of pace. I started with mouse and keyboard, and I was getting really bogged down and struggling to do long sessions. So I came off it, went back to the trusty wired Xbox 360 controller, and then I could play it for as long as I needed. Then it was much more comfortable for me.
Give us a quick overview of the game. What's it about? What's the kind of, without giving any spoilers away, what's the kind of vague storyline that's going on with it?
Yeah, so I won't even spoil what happened in the first one because the events in this game come from what happened in the first one. There's a moment in the game that kind of sets this particular sequel up, and you take control of Adam Jensen, who's like he's one of these classic video game characters, a kind of special operative. He's got augmentations in him, so he's kind of got augment.
Super Soldier
Yeah,
style.
essentially, yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the setting of the game. Really, is that in this alternate sort of world, there are a high population of people that also have augmentations, and there's this
Right.
big societal divide between the two. Like the non-augmented people don't trust the augmentations, and there's a fear that they could, either glitch out or something like
Or
that,
Rise Up
and
and
rise
yeah.
up. Yeah, so there's a big, a divide between the two, and it's sort of based in that area, and you take control of Jensen and work for an Interpol unit set in Prague, and
Okay.
you're also secretly working for another set called the Juggernaut Collective, and they're specifically targeting the Illuminati that's in this game. They're quite a big figure. They're kind of like the bad guys, if you will,
Yeah.
essentially. And so you're kind of doing two roles there. You're investigating the Interpol stuff, which is kind of like weapons dealers and whatnots, but you've also got this ulterior motive where you're trying to find out the bigger picture behind this, because as in all video games, they're all somehow linked together.
Yeah, okay. Because having read up a little bit on the game, kind of going into the game mechanics and the gameplay side of things, it's quite often described as an action role play stealth game.
Yes.
Now, the stealth aspect, is that a large part of it? Because, Metal Gear Solid's often referred to as a stealth game, but in
Mm.
reality you could be kind of a bit blasé with it and go all guns a-blazing if you want. Is there a decent option to go either direction with this, or is this more Splinter Cell? You've
Mm.
got to kind of keep your head low and play in the shadows.
Yeah, so what's really good about this game is the flexibility that it offers you to accomplish your objectives. So it's very well versed in either going guns blazing or going stealth. I prefer a stealth option, so that's the kind of approach I adopted.
Mm.
But just to mess around, I did go in there and start shooting up the place. The mechanics aren't as sound. I'd still say it's slightly, very very slightly leans towards a stealth aspect of
Right,
it.
yeah.
You're normally better off doing that because the cover mechanics are a little bit more fiddly than they need to be.
Yeah.
But you can upgrade and build Adam Jensen's augmentations to be a walking tank essentially, which will alleviate some of the control problems. So I really do think one of the strong points of Mankind Divided is just how flexible it is in whatever approach you decide as a player.
Yeah, so presumably there's some kind of development tree or path that you can
Yes,
take your character down, as there is in so many games now, to kind of mold the game
that's
to the
it.
style of game that you want it to be. You said already that the cover mechanics aren't brilliant at times, perhaps, or there's better examples of it, I should say.
Yeah.
Um, but as a whole, any real kind of glaring problems, or generally pretty solid? What's the kind of scope on that?
No, I think the moment-to-moment gameplay they've got spot on here. They've done it was good in Mankind, sorry, in Human Revolution, and it's still good in
Yeah.
Mankind Divided. So absolutely no complaints of how the game feels or how it plays, other than the cover being a little bit fiddly, but you can get over that.
Yeah, well, that's that. You can't really complain of that too much, I suppose, like you say,
No.
especially when they've tried to incorporate different bits. Obviously, it's come from Eidos Montreal, who I don't know an awful lot about. Obviously, they've done the Deus Ex series and they've done the Thief series, but
Yeah.
their parent company is Square Enix, who I know a lot about, obviously the Final Fantasy games, and quite a large part of their mantra, certainly the Square Enix guys, is their games have got decent longevity. Now, obviously, know that you've said you put about 25 hours in.
Mm.
What are we talking about in terms of game length? Presumably, it's a more linear storyline as opposed to being an open world situation.
Yeah. So what you get is you get main quests. Obviously, you can follow, and then there's a separate kind of tracker for your side quests. And
Okay.
you're primarily focused or based in Prague, and it's like a hub world, so it's quite big. You can wander around and talk to people, and you'll find new side quests by doing that.
Yeah.
And the trouble with that is, if I was comparing it directly to Human Revolution, is that had a hub world as well. It had two hub worlds, I believe. You also have these when you go through the main missions. There are certain places where you come away from the hub world and you'll be in a complex that you've got to infiltrate.
Yeah.
That happens in Mankind Divided, but not as much as it did do in the predecessor. So you kind of get very used to Prague and its surroundings, and it comes towards the end. You think, oh, I just want to go somewhere else now, and it doesn't
Yeah.
doesn't really expand upon it, which is a bit of a shame because I think that's in comparison, although 25 or 22 hours sounds, a lot, it is a lot for a general game. I felt like Human Revolution had more to offer in terms of longevity.
You mentioned that you're playing it on your fancy new PC box, and you finally sort of jumped in and decided to play it through Steam, I presume.
Yep.
Graphically, presumably, you were running at a slightly improved situation to that on the PS4 and the Xbox One.
Yep.
How does the game look as a whole?
Yeah, so I mean, the frame rate was at 60, it ran pretty solidly. The consoles would have been running at 30. And graphically, it looked good. It didn't blow me away. It wasn't,
Mm,
there's better out there for sure. But it's passable. The bit that I was most let down by really was, it's kind of linked into the graphics, was really the presentation, just in terms of the lip syncing for one. It's just awful.
yeah.
It's just really
That's
bad.
that's a bit inexcusable as well, really, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
It's pretty terrible considering there's a lot of conversations you have in the game. The game is, although it's got combat and stealth, it's probably evenly split between the three. One of them is talking to people and
Right,
trying to
okay.
negotiate out of situations where you don't want to get in a fight. So you're looking at these characters for quite a long time, and just the lip syncing is pretty poor. The transitions between cutscenes and gameplay isn't seamless. You can tell that it's cut away and using a completely different engine to do the cutscenes, and then it comes back to the gameplay. It's just a little bit jarring, and yeah, that part of it was a little bit of a letdown. And that's going to be the case across all platforms.
Anticipation for another sequel? Would you be interested in a follow up to this one? Have they left the storyline open such that that might be the case in the future, or?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll be up for seeing another Deus Ex game. I'm not sure we will, because I think if we look at the sales performance of this, it wasn't
It
the
struggled.
best. Critically,
Yeah.
it done decently enough, but sales wise, it struggled. And we've had the news that Marvel are going to be having games built by some of the Square developers, and I think Eidos Montreal, one of those developers, so probably
Which
going to be shelved for a while. So yeah, I mean, I would be up for having another one. I just like that it kind of makes you think a little bit more about how to achieve your objectives. There's usually at least three ways to tackle any objective in the game, so you can kind of experiment and find new ways. And you think, oh, I'm probably the only person that did this. And there were points where I had to get into, say, a building, and I would stack up bins outside to jump up into the wind. Like, I don't think many people are doing that. There were other
Yeah.
ways. There was a vent somewhere else I could have got in that I found once I was in there. But at that moment in time, the stacking of bins seemed like the appropriate approach, and I enjoyed that. So I'd be up for seeing another Deus Ex. I think the universe is intriguing and something they can work with. I don't think they kind of wasted the story setting a little bit here with it, but in general, I think there's potential here. But hopefully, I don't know if we're going to see one now at this stage of the game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there you go. We've had a pretty good overview. That leads us on to the big question of Deus Ex: Mankind Divided. Buy it or bin it.
Fucking buy it.
There you go. So we've got to buy it, seal of approval from the Dimp Digital team. What's the overall grading for Deus Ex?
It's going to be a bronze. I just feel like the presentation really lets it down, and it's disappointing. I don't think it kicked on as much as it could have done with Against Human Revolution. If it's on its own 2 feet, you'd probably be looking at a silver. But if you've played the other one, it's kind of a tiny step back, but still very, very enjoyable game. You know, if you enjoyed Human Revolution, you're going to enjoy this. And if you haven't, it's definitely worth giving a go. A bronze to me is always still a strong grading.
Yeah, well, there you go. Thanks very much for listening in, and we'll catch you on the next review over on the Dimp Digital channel. Thanks very much, and for myself and App, see you later.
Ta-da.